In this special episode of Off the Record, Dashi and Eray venture into an experiment. They don't know who the guests will be or what questions they will be asked. Previous guests have selected 3 surprise guests to visit Dashi and Eray in the podcast studio. Under the motto, The Revenge, the surprise guests take the helm and each bring their own unique perspective on cultural change. Lena is the first to enter the studio. She works in environmental protection at Siemens and focuses on the topic of sustainability in corporate culture. For her, it is crucial that sustainability does not remain just a buzzword, but is credibly put into practice. She talks about conflicting goals in everyday life in which sustainability often falls short. Dashi and Eray pick up on the fact that continuous communication and leading by example are key factors in truly anchoring the value. Lena's questions also put the hosts in the unfamiliar role of having to explain why not everyone listens to their podcasts, which further lightens the mood. Tony is the second to join the conversation. He wants to know what the hosts have learned from their own podcast crisis. For Dashi, one thing is clear. Giving up is not an option. She emphasizes that adaptability means responding flexibly to unexpected situations. Tony probes whether Dashi and Eray are just talking about transformation or actually living it. Both assure him that the podcast itself is an example of constant change. They also agree that openness and the courage to try new things are crucial, even if not everything always works out. At the end, Tony asks the two to consider what values they would choose for a completely new corporate culture if they were starting from scratch. For Dashi, it's openness. For Eray, community and celebrations are also part of it. As the third guest, Sarah brings a reflective perspective to the table. She asks about the most important personal aha moments from the podcast conversation so far. For Dashi, the culture of error is central. It takes practice to actually address mistakes transparently. Eray particularly remembers discussions about strengths and weaknesses and how much the way we deal with them has changed. Sarah also wants to know how the hosts select their guests. It becomes clear that topics often arise from everyday encounters, and that the project inspires great openness among employees. Finally, Sarah looks to the future. What might cultural change look like in 10 years? The episode shows how diverse and lively cultural change can be. Sustainability, adaptability, a culture of error, and visions of the future are central topics brought up by the guests. Dashi and Eray visibly step out of their comfort zone, reflect on their own experiences, and repeatedly emphasize that change can only succeed if values are not just written on slides, but are lived out in everyday life.